Coming up in this video, music mediumship. Aww. Part of our mediumship development training series. Have any questions as we go relating to the topic of this video? Drop them in the comments. Tag up.
If you're watching live, give us a hashtag live tribe.
And if you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay fam.
But if you are just getting to know us, I'm Heather.
And I'm David.
From Zen Rose Garden.
Studies have shown that practicing music reduces aging and prevents Alzheimer's.
So right there, you should practice music.
Yes.
For that alone. Okay.
Right.
You don't have to be, there's a quote that I love as a musician, because sometimes I've experienced people coming up to me like, I don't want to sing around here, play music because you're a professional musician. I'm like, the woods would be silent if only the best birds sang.
Yes.
So I think music is for everyone. It's the universal language. It's the first sound. It's the om. It's beautiful.
It's creation.
It's vibration. So, but you may not realize how having music in your world in different ways, practicing it, listening to it, can improve your mediumship.
So brain science has shown that utilizing the repetitive movements and sounds of music over time reduce symptoms of stress, anxiety, depression, and anger, while improving the quality of life and spiritual well-being.
So I love this. This is my baby topic. I love it. Not my baby topic, but it's one of my babies, right? So a little note, I want to talk about the physical spirit interface and how this can directly help your mediumship. We did a video on your brain on mediumship.
Go check that one out.
Go check that one out. But there's this physical instrument that mediumship comes through. Okay. Right. So mediumship is from spirit. It channels through the subconscious into the physical vessel.
Right.
The better your physical vessel is prepared to receive that information, the more clear and fast and accurate it can be. So the brain is your physical instrument.
The brain is the instrument.
Right. And the spirit is the information.
So that would be the music that comes through the instrument.
So the better that instrument is tuned up, the better the music can come through it. And we're literally going to be talking about music today. So
if you improve the instrument, you improve the ability to convey the information.
So improving mediumship becomes a little less mysterious when you realize there's exercises that you can do and things you can do that are outside of your actual mediumship practice and mediumship practicum you're doing of it, that can help the instrument become stronger. And music is one of those kind of fun, easy things.
So let's talk a little bit about the instrument itself. Okay. An example, a visualization for you to better understand this is if you've got a jacked up guitar. Okay. We're talking about air guitar with like 4 strings missing out of a 6-string guitar.
An air guitar wouldn't have strings. It would be imaginary.
It would. Mine does.
Okay.
Mine totally does. Anyway, you're missing strings or you've got broken strings or it's all out of whack and out of tune and you're trying to play it, you're going to have some jacked up music coming through it.
So you might have the sheet music for an incredible symphony or guitar sonata or whatever, some beautiful guitar music, some like classical Baroque, thing, but you can't play it as adequately as it is on
a jacked up instrument,
on the sheet music. So it's about fine-tuning that instrument, creating a better instrument, and understanding how to read the music. It's the same thing.
Better play the instrument. So now it's time. Now it's time for the good stuff. Now it's time for the good stuff.
We're just making music.
Here we go.
Here we go, kids. So I want to talk about a couple of different types of music mediumship and music mediums, because they come in different flavors. And of course, we can't cover everything.
Right. The first tip is musical mediums who do what? Channel music.
Channel music. So Allan Kardec, who was a spiritualist educator in 1861, described musical mediums in his book on Types of Mediums as those who execute, compose, or write music under the influence of spirits.
Like not drunk, but spirits.
Sometimes, he says, sometimes it's mechanical, sometimes it's semi-mechanical, intuitive, or inspired, all different levels of music that comes through the inspiration and is channeled.
Yep. So we kind of often wonder about the most famous musical prodigy of all time, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart,
right? So this was a musical child prodigy, right? The most famous one of all time that just seemed to sit down and channel music as a little boy that should have been way beyond his ability at that age.
So our question for you is, could he have been this kind of music medium, this type of music medium? What do you think?
Where you're just like, channel the music, it's just coming out, right? So Beethoven was practically deaf, right? So, I mean, what about that? So was he a music medium as well? I mean, these are like the most famous musicians of all composers.
Right.
Beethoven really couldn't hear
Nightwish.
what he was playing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of crazy. So I kind of think Beethoven had a little bit of extra something too, because you're a deaf musician, right? And I've seen other deaf musicians that pull off some really crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
some speculate that he was surely a musician in a past life, or maybe even several past lives.
So, and some people say that there may have been an autistic condition that allowed him to directly access that part of his brain. Now that we're exploring more about autism in the brain and how autistic kids, just there's parts of their brain that are open and parts that are shut, where they can just access that genius so quickly and do crazy genius things that ordinary people just can't do. You know, maybe not consciously cultivated this in myself as a musician in my years performing, but there's been times when I have practiced or performed where I've just kind of like tuned into someone that I admire, like someone that's passed away that's a singer, and or envision what that feels like, and just kind of felt the energy shift. And like now looking back on times that I've practiced and felt that energy shift and felt sort of a plug in, I wonder now looking back if certain times when that performance was just boom and people were really moved,
just mediumship,
who was singing with me from the other side, you know, that I kind of wonder about that now. Looking back, I wasn't as in tune with that type of channeling, even though I was curious about mediumship and exploring it in different ways.
But always knew that something bigger came through you, right?
Right. I could feel it. And for me, I used to just call it, I'm feeling the spirit.
Right.
I'm singing with spirit. Feeling moved by the spirit to step into that song, whatever it was. But I really didn't correlate the two so much. But I did recognize it as clicking in with spirit.
Right. And the same thing for me when I was mixing, there would be moments where I would just get in the zone. Okay. That's a kind of stepping in moment when you get in the zone and everything locks in, and there was something bigger coming through me as I was doing my performance. So it's the same element of, you've got somebody who is doing something musically, then something bigger than themselves comes through.
Well, I think a couple of things happen just from my perspective of performing, is that I think there's that moment where you click into yourself,
right?
Where it's
locking into your own zone.
You lock into your own zone, that art zone, that music zone, where you're just not thinking, you're not caring what people think. You're just in the own ecstasy of the creating of the music. Yeah. And I would think at that point, there would be singers and angels and people on the other side that are like, I want to be in on that. Let me sing with you and let me perform with you. And something transformative happens. Because
to me, there have been moments of the two zones. Okay. There's the zone where you click into your artistry, you click into your brain, you click into your flow, you find your groove, everything's awesome. And then there's the second zone where you just channel.
I think it could be threefold, right? Because I sort of see, I see that everything outside of ourselves is sort of this grid of energy and connects us through all of our lives and our experiences. And we're like in the middle of that on earth. Right. And we're just tapping into all these frequencies and it's kind of all connected. And I think, I think all of these things are possible at the same time.
So you could channel Mozart, you could be Mozart, you could channel that part in your brain that he was channeling into and do that same thing. So
I want to talk about a second type of music mediums. And this is a different type than the medium who channels either
inspiration,
either composed music, or they channel another musician through them, that kind of thing. I honestly think people like Prince, people tap it. If you were like a musician that passed away and you're in the spirit world and you're like seeing somebody that's really locking in, that's got their stuff on lock, wouldn't you want to go sing with them? I think
you want to go sit in, right?
Go sit in, because like it's a time-honored thing among professional musicians. Then when you go see another person in a band, I'm talking about not at a concert, but like here in Las Vegas, it's kind of a time-honored thing.
Local gigs, right?
Local gigs where you go see a friend playing after work. Like I know I'd finish a gig and go, my friend was playing down the street
Mhm.
at the Tropicana, go see them. And they're like, hey, would you like to sit in?
Mhm.
So it's a time-honored tradition for musicians
Right.
to sit in.
And you'll see that a lot in jazz clubs, for example.
Right. So I'd like go, yeah, what do you know? Do you know this song? Boom. And we'd sit in and just have a little guest spot. And
Right.
people do that all the time in the Las Vegas lounge musician scene,
Right.
just as a common, a professional courtesy and just to kind of give them a break too. So I don't
Yes.
see why
Mhm.
that tradition, which has been around for decades,
Wouldn't extend to the spirit world.
right? Because I mean, a musician who's already performing, you've already got that. Would I like Miles Davis to sit in?
Heck yeah.
Aretha Franklin,
Yeah.
you could sit in anytime, girl, when I'm doing
Yeah.
karaoke, which is what I do anymore.
All right, let's go to the type number 2, which
Yes.
is physical music mediums.
So there is an old school phase of musical mediumship known as mediums for musical effects.
Right.
Okay. And this is not a musician.
Mhm.
This is a medium for musical effects.
Right. So
Okay?
this was a sought after phase in circles for physical mediumship development of the 1800s. It involved playing certain musical instruments without human contact.
So this is obviously a physical phase because it takes a lot more energy to
Mhm.
produce. This was
Yeah.
a lot less common because, of course, it's a phase that takes a lot to develop.
Right.
But in circles back in the day, and we're talking 1800s when they
Right.
were developing circle work,
Mhm. Not circle jerk.
punk band from the 80s,
Yes.
80s, 70s.
Yes.
So back in the day,
Because we're talking about music.
one of the phases of physical mediumship was a musical variety of trumpet manifestations.
Right.
So if you're not familiar with trumpet manifestations, what it was they would, in the old spiritualist circles, they'd have these trumpets,
Mhm.
like little brass trumpets, right?
Right.
And they would mount them in the corners of the ceiling and in the circle, try to create enough energy so that spirits could speak through the trumpets. It's basically your original EVP device.
Right.
They were trying to create enough electrical energy for sound to come through the trumpet to basically amplify a spirit
Who was
direct
trying to communicate.
a direct mediumship phenomena in
Yes.
the room where everyone could hear it.
So the trumpet was reported to play, maybe not always like Miles Davis, but musical sounds coming through, right?
Right. So sometimes singing could be heard through the
Mhm.
trumpet, or other musical sounds would be heard in the room, not
Right.
necessarily in the trumpet.
And some mediums seem to be more naturally prone to this type of mediumship or this type of phenomenon where you've got the external physical musical mediumship.
So I've had one experience like this for me, and it was when I was a really little girl. Like I have this piano, and my mom has a grand piano she got when she was 16 years old, and
It's pretty grand.
I inherited it when she passed away. It's my piano. And I remember coming down, everyone was still asleep, and the piano was playing by itself. Now, to this day, I mean, yes, I was 4, but I remember it from the time I was a little girl. It's never been a memory that I remembered. It's something that I always
never forgot.
Never forgot. So was I in some sort of hypnotic state trance when that
Mhm.
was happening? I don't know, but I just have this very clear, vivid memory of that piano playing and just stopping
Yep.
and listening to the music coming from the piano and how haunting it was. And it
Mhm.
was like, whoa. And then it stopped. I was totally freaked out, but also totally fascinated and like had
Yeah.
a lot of, it was cool.
Pretty wild experience.
I've
So-
never experienced anything like that dramatic since.
Right.
And like I said, who knows? Maybe I was sleepwalking. People would ask me how I write music, because that's kind of been my main thing since I was 5 years old, was writing music. That was
Mhm.
like my big thing. So, but how I would write music was a little bit different. I would never sit down at the piano and work it out.
Mhm.
I would always dream the song. I'm dreaming, I'm on stage, I'm singing this song. It comes in like a ball, like there it's complete, and I'm singing it in my dream. And then I wake up and I have to run to the piano and figure out what it was that I just dreamed and
Mhm.
put it on paper.
And unravel the dream.
It's like a ball I have to unravel. And that's how I've always written music. That's sort of a form of dream music mediumship. Well, I don't know who I'd give writing credit to if it was in my dream. I mean, maybe
you.
some,
That's all for you.
I know, but maybe like somebody else wrote it, but I don't know who that is. So I can't really put it on the credits, right?
Yeah.
So
Have you ever witnessed somebody channeling music? Okay. Did you notice the moment that they locked in to spirit? And we're talking about different than their zone, but the second zone, the lock into spirit zone. And moving on to number 3, some tips for using music to grow your mediumship.
So adding movement, okay, any kind of movement to any meditation, right, enhances the cognitive performance of the brain. And that's what we're talking about, is creating a better instrument, having a better quality instrument for the music to come through. Finger movements, when you perform with music, improves the central and peripheral nervous system. Because you are, as you're doing this and learning, even it's awkward, right? It takes years to master and to fine tune and to coordinate the brain with the fingers. But as you're doing that, guess what you're doing? You're growing those dendrites
in your brain.
You're growing those forests of dendrites in your brain, and the connection that helps that information come through so much more smoothly.
And early music training for children enhances the visual, spatial, verbal abilities in the long term, right?
And guess what that helps you with? Clairaudience, clairvoyance, clairsentience, verbal and spatial, which you receive all the information of your senses in your brain, right? Yes, you're seeing with your eyes or you're sensing it with your inner eye, but it all happens in the brain.
So any musical training is a form of cognitive meditation because it involves concentration, repeated instructional techniques. You're in that learning phase, body coordination, motivated attention. It also enhances your visual and your auditory processing. And remember, we said that is the function of mind, that we enhance our psychic abilities, which is the instrument through which the mediumship comes through, right? And it also improves your attention.
And in mediumship, what is primary is the improvement of your attention.
Yes.
Because in mediumship, you're paying attention to details, to finite, little, tiny, subtle sensations, and all of those take place in the brain. So you're seeing these senses in a physical, real world way. I'm touching, I'm sensing, I'm feeling the temperature change, and then Mufasa, and then through the psychic information that's coming through spirit or your subconscious is still depositing in the brain, and it's still processing. So it's all coming into the same instrument. So as you can do these little exercises and things that improve your brain, so much the better.
Cheryl says, had the pleasure of the lead guitarist for a well-known metal band live in my house for about a year. I hate metal, but watching him lose himself in a solo was always magical. And then Marianne says, I used to write a lot when I was younger. I'm starting to get back into it. I get downloads right before I fall asleep. I sleep with a notebook next to my bed.
Same.
Yeah,
I have
there
to.
you go.
I have to. Okay, let's talk about how this is going to apply a little bit more to your mediumship. So if you are primarily a message medium, okay, so we've been talking about music mediums, okay, but if you are primarily a message and evidentiary medium, you may hear a song clairaudiently for a sitter. Like you might hear that person, the loved one's favorite song. I know that's happened to me. One time it was Highway to Hell. That's why I wore my AC/DC shirt. I remember this one person who came in and her dad had passed away, and she looked like a school teacher. I would never have connected AC/DC to her, but I heard the song Highway to Hell like blasting in my head.
Now I got it in my head.
And I was like, so I have the song Highway to Hell in my head, and she's like,
that would be my brother.
Dad. No, it was her dad.
No, that was my brother.
Oh,
thanks.
your brother. His brother loved metal, but it was her dad was like a biker, and I would never have guessed that her dad was this like rough biker guy that and so you might have that clairaudiently for a sitter.
But how to grow it?
So growing that channel. So taking up a music practice as a hobby, playing music can grow those physical connections in your brain that you can use during mediumship. It's an easier channel. It's already open, and if a communicator has a song, they're like, they just turn the radio up, right?
And because you already trained those parts of your brain, it's easier for that to become a conduit or a channel. This can be accomplished by listening to more music, for example, especially more complex music like jazz, anything classical, or world music that gets more of the brain to be engaged in hearing some more of these complex patterns, or by actually taking up an instrument and learning the basics of music theory and rhythm.
I like the music of some of the like more complex jazz composers like Thelonious Monk, Charles Mingus, and some of those, John Coltrane, some of those more complex jazz composers challenge the ear.
Yes.
And when your ear is challenged,
challenge the brain.
It challenges your brain, and your brain starts creating new little
more dendrites, more forest.
Right. So it's kind of crazy. It's not a hard thing to do.
Some of my favorite music involves more of the complex patterns in like breakbeat, drum and bass, jungle. Those tend to be some of my favorites. And it stimulates those parts of the brain.
And of course, classical, which is very complex.
Mm-hmm.
So you might try.
I've always loved more complex music.
You might try singing your mantra or your prayer. Like if you pray as part of your meditation, or you have affirmations that you say daily, you might try singing those.
Right.
Like Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, or your prayer. It doesn't matter what denomination you are, what kind of prayer. If you sing it, instead, this will increase your cognitive performance.
It's like a Build a Brain workshop.
So
if anybody knows Build a Bear, this is Build a Brain.
So I know for me, it definitely benefited me with my clairaudience, having spent years in a recording studio with recording, originals and stuff, and having to listen to individual pieces and parts of music separately, which is what you have to do when you're creating this layer cake of music. Over the years, I know that I built the foundations for easy access to that clairaudience when I do hear a song from a communicator that is a piece of evidence. And it's an easy thing for you guys to develop. And
this is also a really fun way to expand and deepen your evidence. When you have more senses tuned, you become a better receiver. More channels are available, plus it's good for your health.
So so just remember, it's good for your health anyway. It's good for your mental health, and it's good for it reduces aging.
Build a brain.
And helps prevent Alzheimer's. So all that is good. We have learned that self-growth and developing your superpowers go together like sushi, Sapporo, and sake.
And that's why we created our signature subscription membership, Zen Ed Academy, to bridge that gap and revolutionize this field.
Let's find out real quick if this is right for you before we dip out and go watch Zombieland Double Tap. That's what we're doing today. Are you tired of mediumship advice that is way too complicated?
Are you tired of people telling you that the intuitive arts are satanic?
Are you tired of people telling you that light workers and healers are all crazy?
We're not, just some of us. Are you ready for psychic and mediumship training that does not scare the crap out of you? If so, Zen Ed Academy is a rebel base. Rebel base. Gotta love the rebel base, where the revolution begins. What do you need to do to get into the academy and become part of the revolution? Click the link in the description right down there. All that info is down below.
If you liked this video, hit
that
the
like button.
5
times. Just kidding. Once is good.
If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. That is where we get ideas for new videos.
And for more mind hacking pro tips,
be sure to subscribe
and click the bell to turn notifications on,
so you're the first to know
when we drop a new video
or go live.
And we know that time is a valuable and precious resource, and the fact that you guys have chosen to spend that with us, we absolutely honor and appreciate that. But most importantly, to level up your skills in your business and taking all of that to a whole new level, we honor that even more. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
See you in the next video.